I showed my husband the proof gathered by the detective agency. He admitted Daniel and I were having an affair. I'm crazy about her. I'm going to be with her, and you're going to leave. Are you sure about that? I challenged. I don't care what will happen, he replied. My name is Amelia. I'm a 37-year-old office worker. I live with my husband, Tom, and our 5-year-old daughter, Flora. We're pretty close and complement each other well, making up for each other's deficiencies. For the time being, we are happy as a family. My husband is a good cook and always makes dinner for us. I work a lot of overtime and come home late, so I'm grateful that my husband is able to take care of the housework. Then, one day, my husband unexpectedly injured his ligament. The cause of the injury was that he was playing basketball for the first time in a while when he went out with his friends on a day off and forced himself to shoot the ball. My husband is 5 years younger than me, but he is already 32 years old. No matter how good he used to be at basketball, he had hardly done any exercise since he started working. Why would he do something reckless like this without thinking about it? He has a job and a child to consider, yet he's not careful at all. When we were dating, his recklessness felt new and fresh to me, but now it just comes across as a negative trait. In fact, my husband has been hospitalized as a result of this injury, which means he has to take time off work, and I would have to take care of the housework and our child. On top of that, he got hurt playing basketball on his day off. It wasn't even on a basketball court, his injury happened at a facility for various sports and games. The company would be appalled to find out about it. They might even fire him in the worst-case scenario. My husband is just too stupid and careless. This time, I was really angry with him. I was disillusioned by his behavior. I've said it many times, but he has no sense of responsibility as an adult. According to the doctor's diagnosis, he needs to stay in the hospital for about 2 weeks. I brought him a change of clothes, a phone charger, and the basic necessities. "Oh, thank you, Amelia," he said, cheerful despite everything. I was disgusted by my husband's reaction. Why was he so cheerful? Normally, he would be more depressed. Well, what can I do? I didn't mean to get hurt. Besides, I'll use my paid vacation days, so it'll be okay, he explained. What do you mean it'll be okay? If it wasn't for your injury, you could have used your paid time off more effectively, like for our daughter's kindergarten event or a family trip. That's what the paid vacation days are for. Besides, since you can't come to work, your coworkers and bosses are going to have to take on more work. As for our daughter, I'm glad my mom agreed to come home and take care of her this time, but if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have been able to work overtime at all, and I would have troubled people at my work. You should be aware of the problems you're causing everyone. I guess I was really angry after all because these complaints came out so easily from my mouth. My husband seemed to feel bad about it and said, "I'm sorry." Well, maybe I went a little overboard myself. At any rate, get better as soon as you can, I said and left the hospital room. With or without my husband, my work is very busy. I was going to ask my mother to take care of my daughter a little longer, but when my boss and coworkers found out my husband was in the hospital, they told me I didn't have to work overtime. Thanks to them, I was able to leave work on time. I could come home early, cook dinner, and have time to eat with my daughter. I didn't have to rely on my mother too much either, so I really appreciated the kindness of the people at work. About a week after my husband was hospitalized, I met up with my mother and daughter after work and went to visit him. When we arrived at his hospital room, I heard him laughing happily with a woman's voice. Oh my God, Tom! Who could it be? I wondered if she was my husband's colleague or junior colleague at work. When we entered the hospital room, there was a nurse there. She looked young, maybe in her early 20s, slim, and quite beautiful. "Oh, there's your wife and your lovely daughter." "Well, I'll leave you all," the nurse said. "Hello, gave us a quick bow, and left the room. While I'm busy with everything, you're chatting with a beautiful nurse so carelessly. My husband must have noticed my cold stare because he clearly seemed nervous. Hey, thank you all for coming, he said, trying to diffuse the tension. But thanks to my daughter, my husband didn't have to be scolded by me. Hey, Dad, my daughter exclaimed, hugging him and looking very happy to see him for the first time in a week. Flora, I missed you so much. Is your leg okay? She asked. Now that you're here, Flora, it's going to be fine. So, you'll be home soon. Yes, I will. Yay! Since my daughter seemed to be happy, I decided to leave the scolding for another time. After our visit, my mother blurted out to me, that young nurse was calling his name in such a friendly way. That's right, I thought. Now that she reminded me, it sounded even intimate. But I could not imagine that my husband would have the nerve to do anything with a beautiful young nurse. Well, I mean, she wouldn't even care about him. But it sure wasn't completely out of the question. They say nurses don't get to meet many men. Maybe she's quite a predator. Finally, 2 weeks after my husband's injury, he was discharged from the hospital. On the day he was discharged, I went to his hospital room, and he was talking happily with that beautiful nurse again. In the car on the way home, he looked so bored. I would think that he would be happy to get out of the hospital. I thought this was suspicious, so I decided to hire a detective agency to look into it. The evidence of the affair between my husband and the beautiful nurse came out immediately. After he was discharged from the hospital, he went to the hospital after work because he had to go to rehabilitation. But in fact, that was not the case. His leg was already healed, so he lied about the rehabilitation and went to the nurse's house. I couldn't believe it. How on earth would my husband have an affair with that beautiful nurse? Do beautiful nurses have a weird taste? I confronted my husband with the evidence from the detective agency. And he admitted, yes, I'm having an affair. I'm crazy about her. I'm going to be with her, and you're going to leave. I really don't care what happens. I'm in love with her. Okay, do what you want. This is ridiculous, I replied. I packed my things, took my daughter, and went home to my parents. When I explained to my mother what had happened, she was furious. I knew it was suspicious, she said. You're very sharp, Mother, I responded. After that, I divorced my husband through a lawyer. I demanded alimony and my share of the property. We had a bit of a dispute over the property division, but I managed to get what I wanted and received the money I deserved. With this, I thought I was completely disconnected from my husband and could start a new life with my daughter. However, as my new life started, I began receiving calls from an unknown number. At first, I ignored the calls, but they were so persistent that I decided to answer. Hello. Finally, she picks up, a voice said. Hey, you, what's going on? Who is this? I asked. I'm Rose, Tom's new wife, the voice replied. Oh, the adulterous partner. What do you want? You demanded an unbelievable amount of alimony and property from my husband, Rose said angrily. No, I had a lawyer come up with a fair amount, I replied. Then why does he have to sell the house to pay for it? She demanded. That's because his salary is low, I explained. Huh? How can it be low if he works for a foreign-invested company? She asked, confused. What are you talking about? I'm the one working for a foreign-invested company, not him, I clarified. What do you mean? Rose asked, shocked. I'm sure my husband lied to you to look good. He probably incorporated details from my job into his conversations with you. My husband is a regular employee of a small company. His salary is quite low, about half of what I make, I explained. Oh no, that's a scam. I approached him because he said he worked for a foreign-invested company and owned the house in his name, she said, horrified. The house is in our joint name, and by the way, I made the down payment. So if my husband continues to live in the house after the divorce, he'll have to pay me half of the house's appraised value, I said. Oh no. He's not handsome and doesn't even have the money. There's nothing attractive about him, Rose realized. Well, I guess not attractive enough to have an affair with, I replied. He was a good dad, though. I don't care if he's good with kisses. I got cheated on, I said firmly. I'm sorry to hear that, but you better pay your alimony too. Otherwise, I'll take immediate action. After that, I received a call from my ex-husband protesting. Apparently, he had been dumped by his adulterous partner. Just before they were about to get married, she ran away. But he was the one who tried to seduce a beautiful nurse by lying to her and trying to look good to begin with, so it's his fault. I told him, if you have a problem with the alimony, try to earn as much as I do first, and then I hung up the phone. Since then, I see my ex-husband only when my daughter wants to see him. He whines every time he sees me. I heard that his injury from playing basketball caused a lot of trouble at his work. His boss hates him for that, and he's never going to get promoted in the future. He really deserves it. I, on the other hand, am back at home and working hard while my parents support me in raising my child. This allows me to save money for my daughter's education and take weekend trips with my family. I was worried that the divorce might have a negative impact on my daughter, but she still smiles sweetly as ever. I will continue to work hard to keep her smiling.
My greedy husband used my $300,000 inheritance to secure his own future, while leaving me stranded. He secretly sold the house where I was caring for my paralyzed father-in-law, laughing as he declared, "You both are now homeless." To add insult to injury, he threw divorce papers in my face, shattering the life I thought we had built together. The very next day, when lawyers approached me with legal documents, I was left in shock, my world crumbling around me. How could everything I trusted slip away so quickly? I'm Sophia, a graphic designer in my late 30s, and I want to share my story with you. Life has taken unexpected turns, some that left me feeling on top of the world, and others that brought me to my knees. After my parents passed away, I inherited a decent amount of money, which made my life in Austin, Texas, quite comfortable. I had my own apartment filled with sunlight and colorful artwork that I loved to create. Financially, I was secure, but emotionally, I was searching for something or someone to fill the void. That's where my best friend, Maya, came into the picture. She's in her 30s and has always been obsessed with astrology. She'd tell me how the stars aligned and how they could predict our futures. I was skeptical, but also a bit curious. One evening over coffee, she leaned in with excitement. "Sophia, I have to tell you about this guy I found in your chart. His name is Ryan, and he's your perfect match." I raised an eyebrow, amused. "Oh, really? Is he a prince or a movie star?" Maya laughed, undeterred by my teasing. "No, he's a regular guy, but the stars say you two are meant to be together. Just trust me, you need to meet him." After some coaxing, I reluctantly agreed to meet Ryan, half expecting a weird guy who would talk about constellations all night. To my surprise, when I met him, he was charming and down-to-earth. He had an easy smile, a great sense of humor, and a love for hiking and indie films, just like me. We started seeing each other regularly, and I felt something spark between us. It was exhilarating, something I hadn't experienced in a long time. After a few months, Ryan and I became a couple. Things moved quickly, and before I knew it, he convinced me to invest my inheritance into his home, persuading me to pay off his $300,000 mortgage. "Think about it, Sophia," he said, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "If we're going to build a life together, we need a solid foundation. This house can be ours." I hesitated but ultimately agreed, swept up in the whirlwind of romance. I thought I was making a sound investment in our future. Little did I know, my trust would soon be put to the test. The first few months in the house were blissful. We decorated together, and I loved creating art for the walls. Ryan and I often took weekend trips to the nearby hills, enjoying nature and each other's company. But soon, life threw us a curveball. Ryan's father, Thomas, was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare condition that left him paralyzed. The news hit us hard, and I felt a wave of sympathy for Ryan and his family. I offered my support without hesitation. "Ryan, let's figure this out together," I said one evening as we sat on the couch. "Your dad needs help, and we can do this." "Thanks, Sophia. It means a lot," he replied, looking grateful but worried. As Thomas needed constant care, I decided to move in with Ryan's family to help out. I thought it was the right thing to do. Ryan's mother, Brenda, was in her 60s and suffered from chronic arthritis. She became increasingly demanding, making it hard for me to focus on my graphic design work while also caring for Thomas. "Can you do this? Can you get me that?" Brenda would ask, her tone sharp, her frustration palpable. "Yes, I'm working on it," I would respond, trying to stay calm. But it was challenging. I felt overwhelmed, trying to juggle my job and Thomas's care. I even took a short course in physical therapy techniques to help him regain some movement. "Just a little more," I would say to Thomas during our sessions, trying to encourage him. "You can do it." Over time, Thomas started to show signs of improvement. He regained slight movement in his fingers and began to speak a few words. Each small victory felt monumental, but my efforts often went unnoticed by Brenda. One evening, after a long day of caring for Thomas and dealing with Brenda's constant complaints, I finally snapped. "Brenda, I'm trying my best here. I'm doing this for your husband and for Ryan. Can't you see that?" Brenda just rolled her eyes. "You should be more focused on taking care of him instead of sitting around. It's not like you have a real job anymore." I felt my heart sink. I was trying to help a family in need, but all I received were criticisms. Yet, I remained committed to Thomas, who, despite his struggles, was grateful for my support. I could see the warmth in his eyes every time I made progress with him. Months passed, and finally, Brenda announced she needed a break. "I'm going to stay with Ryan for a while," she said one morning, packing her bags. "I can't take this place anymore." Relief washed over me. "That's great, Brenda. I hope it helps you." As she left, I turned to Thomas. "It's just us now, buddy. We can make some real progress," I said, smiling at him. He blinked slowly in response, and I knew he understood. It was a fresh start for both of us, but little did I know, shadows loomed ahead. The days turned into weeks, and I became more focused on helping Thomas regain his strength. We worked on exercises every morning, and I learned more about his condition and how to assist him better. However, I started noticing changes in Ryan. He seemed distant and preoccupied. "Hey, is everything okay?" I asked him one night after dinner. "Yeah, just work stuff," he replied, but I could sense something was off. As we tried to navigate our new reality, I had no idea that the biggest challenge was yet to come. The feeling of unease clung to me like a shadow, and soon, everything I thought I knew would be turned upside down. As the weeks passed, I found comfort in my routine with Thomas. We shared quiet moments in the garden, and I could see the determination in his eyes as he worked to regain his strength. It felt good to help him, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was making a real difference in someone's life. But beneath that comfort, a nagging feeling of unease began to grow within me. One evening, while I was busy working on a graphic design project, my phone buzzed. It was Ryan. "Can we talk?" the message read. My stomach nodded as I sensed something was wrong. "Sure, when?" I replied. "Now," he said. I quickly finished up and made my way to the living room. Ryan was sitting on the couch, looking more serious than I had ever seen him. "Sophia, there's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice low. "Okay, what's going on?" I asked, my heart racing. He hesitated, running a hand through his hair. "My dad, he's not getting better. The doctors are saying he may not recover fully. I just can't handle this anymore." I understand that it's hard, I said gently, but we're doing our best. You have me here, and we're making progress. Yeah, but I need more. I need to focus on myself for a while, and I can't keep doing this. I think I need to sell the house, he said, avoiding my gaze. Sell the house. But Ryan, we've invested so much in this place. This is our home. I protested. He looked up at me, his eyes cold. It's not just a house anymore. It's a burden. I can't keep pretending everything is fine. Fine, I said, my voice shaking. But what about your dad? He needs you. Ryan stood up, anger flaring in his eyes. Don't you get it? I'm not his caregiver. I can't keep sacrificing my life for him. I felt a wave of frustration and fear wash over me. You can't just abandon him. He's your father. Just think about it, Sophia, he shot back before leaving the room. The conversation left me rattled. I couldn't understand how Ryan could be so dismissive of his own father's needs. My resolve to support Thomas grew stronger, but I also felt increasingly isolated. The next day, I continued to work with Thomas, who had become my confidant. One afternoon, while we were sitting in the sun, he looked at me intently. Sophia, I need to tell you something, he said slowly, his voice gaining strength. I leaned closer, eager to hear what he had to say. What is it, Thomas? I overheard Ryan and Brenda, he whispered. They were talking about how they plan to take advantage of you. They think you're just a means to an end. My heart dropped. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I was in a room when they thought I couldn't hear. They mentioned something about your inheritance and how they could use it to their advantage, he explained, his brow furrowed in concern. I shook my head in disbelief. That doesn't make any sense. Ryan wouldn't do that to me. He might not see it that way, Thomas said, looking me straight in the eye. But you need to be careful. I didn't want to believe it either, but sometimes people show their true colors when faced with tough times. As I absorbed Thomas's words, a knot of dread twisted in my stomach. Could Ryan really be planning something against me? I thought back to his recent behavior, his distance, his unwillingness to talk about his father. It all began to make sense in a way I wished it didn't. I resolved to confront Ryan about what Thomas had told me. That evening, as we sat across from each other at the dining table, I summoned all my courage. Ryan, I need to talk to you about something important, I began. Can it wait? I'm really not in the mood, he replied, looking down at his plate. No, it can't wait. I heard something from your dad, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. His eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Thomas told me he overheard you and Brenda discussing plans to use my inheritance. Is that true? Ryan's expression changed. His face went pale. That's ridiculous. My dad doesn't know what he's talking about. Why would he make that up? You've been acting distant lately. What's really going on? I pressed, refusing to back down. Nothing. I'm just stressed out, he snapped, pushing his chair back. I can't deal with this right now, Sophia. Then what can you deal with, Ryan? Because I feel like I'm in this alone, I said, my voice trembling. He stood up, fists clenched, and walked out of the room. I can't do this, he muttered. I felt my heart sink as I realized the conversation hadn't gone anywhere. Doubt filled my mind, and the seed of betrayal was planted deep within me. As I sat alone at the table, the walls felt like they were closing in. I could sense that my world was about to unravel, and I had no idea how to stop it. Days turned into a blur of worry and tension, but I remained committed to Thomas. I didn't want to believe Ryan could be capable of such betrayal. Yet every time I glanced at my phone, a sense of dread washed over me. The shadows were creeping in, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the brink of something I wasn't prepared for. It was a strange mix of anxiety and determination that filled my days as I continued to help Thomas. I poured my heart into his recovery, hoping to make a difference while grappling with my suspicions about Ryan. Despite my growing unease, I tried to push thoughts of betrayal to the back of my mind, focusing instead on the little victories we were achieving together. One afternoon, as we practiced Thomas's physical therapy exercises, I noticed him struggling to lift his arm. Come on, Thomas, you can do it, I encouraged, gripping his arm gently to guide him. With a determined look, he gave it his all, and his fingers finally curled around a small object I had placed on the table. Good job. That's it. I cheered, feeling a rush of pride. Thomas smiled weakly, his eyes lighting up. Thanks, Sophia. I couldn't have done this without you, he said, his voice steadier than before. Just then, the front door creaked open and Ryan walked in, looking exhausted. What's going on here? He asked, eyeing the scene suspiciously. Just helping your dad with some exercises, I replied, trying to keep my tone light. Yeah, well, don't tire him out too much. He needs rest, Ryan said, a hint of irritation in his voice. I felt a pang of frustration. We're making progress, Ryan. It's important for his recovery. He shrugged, clearly uninterested. Whatever, he muttered, heading into the kitchen. I exchanged a worried glance with Thomas. His expression mirrored my concern. Sophia, I think you need to prepare yourself, he said quietly after Ryan left the room. Prepare for what? I asked, feeling a chill run down my spine. I just have a bad feeling about Ryan. If he's truly thinking about selling the house, you need to be ready for what that might mean for you, Thomas said, his tone serious. The weight of his words sank in. I didn't want to think about it, but deep down, I knew he was right. I couldn't shake the feeling that the foundation of my life was beginning to crumble. The last thing I wanted was to lose everything I had worked for, especially my relationship with Thomas, who had become like family to me. Later that week, I returned to our home after running errands, only to find the living room in disarray. Boxes were scattered everywhere, and Ryan was packing up his belongings. What's going on? I asked, my heart racing. I'm just getting things organized, Ryan said curtly, avoiding eye contact. Organized for what? Are you seriously packing? I pressed, feeling a surge of panic. Just a few things for the sale, he said casually. Sale? You can't be serious, Ryan. You're really going through with it? I exclaimed, disbelief flooding my voice. Look, Sophia, this is for the best. I need to take control of my life, he snapped, finally meeting my gaze. This isn't just your life, Ryan. It's ours. You can't sell the house without even discussing it with me. I felt the anger rising within me. I invested my inheritance into this place. Maybe it was a mistake, he retorted, crossing his arms defensively. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're throwing everything away. What about your dad? What about us? Ryan shook his head, frustration evident on his face. You don't get it. I can't keep living like this. I can't keep pretending everything is fine. It's exhausting. Exhausting? Try being the one caring for your father while you sit here and make plans to abandon him. I shot back, tears welling in my eyes. Stop acting like you're the only one who cares, he yelled, the tension in the room palpable. With that, Ryan stormed out of the house, leaving me standing there in shock. The reality of what was happening hit me like a wave. I felt betrayed and alone, and the man I had trusted was now a stranger. The next morning, I returned to Thomas's room, where he was waiting for me. What happened? He asked, his brow furrowed with concern. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. Ryan wants to sell the house. He doesn't care about what we've built here, or how much it means to me. He's giving up on everything. Thomas looked solemn. You need to think about your future, Sophia. You can't allow him to dictate your life. You deserve better. His words resonated deeply within me. I realized then that I had to reclaim my life. I had to take a stand, not just for myself, but for Thomas, who had become my ally in this battle. With renewed determination, I decided it was time to confront Ryan once and for all. I needed to find out if his intentions were truly as selfish as they seemed. My heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead, but I knew I couldn't back down now. The shadows were closing in, and I was ready to face whatever darkness awaited me. The air in the house felt thick with tension as I prepared to confront Ryan. My heart raced with a mix of anxiety and determination. I knew I had to stand up for myself and for Thomas. As I approached Ryan, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. Ryan, we need to talk, I said, finding him in the living room, surrounded by half-packed boxes. He glanced up, irritation flickering in his eyes. What now? I swallowed hard. I can't let you sell the house without discussing it with me. This is our home, not just an investment. I deserve to know what you're really planning. He crossed his arms, his jaw tightening. I told you this is for my own good. You have no idea how trapped I feel. I can't keep living like this. Trapped? What about your father? He needs you now more than ever, and you're just going to walk away. I challenged, my voice rising. You're abandoning him. Ryan's expression hardened. I can't be responsible for him anymore. I didn't sign up for this. I felt a surge of anger. And I did? I've been here for him, when you couldn't be. You think you can just sell this house and leave without any consequences? Consequences, he scoffed. What do you mean? Ryan, I invested my inheritance into this place. You're not just hurting me. You're hurting your father. If you go through with this, I will fight you for what's right. I declared, feeling the fire within me grow stronger. His face paled at my words. You wouldn't dare, he shot back, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Try me, I said, unwavering. This is not just about money. It's about loyalty, about family. You need to decide what kind of person you want to be. Ryan remained silent, the tension hanging between us like a heavy fog. Finally, he dropped his gaze to the floor, his shoulders slumping. I don't know what to do, he admitted quietly. Then let's figure it out together. We can find a way to support your dad without throwing everything away, I said gently. But you need to meet me halfway. He looked up, his expression softening. I'm scared, Sophia. I don't want to lose everything, but I don't know how to handle this. We'll handle it together. I'm not going anywhere, I reassured him, feeling a flicker of hope. In that moment, I realized that we both needed to grow. It was time for Ryan to face his responsibilities, and it was time for me to reclaim my life, no matter how messy things got. As the days turned into weeks, we worked together to support Thomas's recovery. Ryan began to show signs of commitment, balancing his own fears with the needs of his father. It wasn't easy, but we learned to communicate better and find strength in our shared goal. One evening, as we sat in the living room, I noticed the warmth returning to Ryan's eyes. Thank you for not giving up on me, he said, breaking the silence. I didn't realize how much I needed you until I almost lost you. I smiled, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. We're in this together. Family doesn't just mean blood. It's about being there for each other. The months rolled on, and Thomas continued to improve. He was now able to move around the house with some assistance, and had even started sharing stories from his past, filling our lives with laughter and memories. Our bond deepened, and I felt grateful for the unexpected role I had taken in his life. As for Ryan and me, we began to rebuild our relationship. We found joy in simple moments, whether it was cooking dinner together or watching movies on the couch. The shadows that had once loomed over us began to fade, replaced by a renewed sense of hope. One day, as we sat together in the garden, Ryan turned to me, his expression serious. Sophia, I want to make things official. I don't want to lose you again. Are you proposing? I asked, surprised. He nodded, pulling out a simple ring from his pocket. I know it's been a rocky road, but I believe we can face anything together. Tears filled my eyes as I nodded, accepting the ring. Yes, of course. I want to build a future with you. In that moment, I realized that life's hardships had taught me valuable lessons about trust, resilience, and personal growth. I had reclaimed my life, not just for myself, but for those I loved. As we embraced, I felt stronger than ever, ready to face whatever challenges the future held, hand in hand.
In the lush heart of an upscale neighborhood stood the property that could change my life. The price tag alone, $1.5 million, screamed luxury, but as I walked through its opulent hallways beside my husband Nathan, a sense of unease gnawed at me. Meredith, look at this place. Nathan's eyes sparkled with an almost childlike glee. Imagine us here, hosting parties, living the dream. I tried to mirror his enthusiasm, but a voice inside me whispered caution. It's stunning, Nathan, but the price. Can we really manage this, even with Dad's help? Nathan laughed, his voice echoing in the grand foyer. Your dad won't mind. He's got more than enough. This is our chance, Meredith. Our future. His words felt like a mask slipping, revealing a glimmer of greed I hadn't seen before. We continued the tour in silence until we reached the garden. The real estate agent, a sharply dressed man named Mr. Collins, excused himself to take a call. Go on out, Nathan. I'll catch up, I said, needing a moment alone. Nathan nodded and stepped outside. That's when Mr. Collins returned, his face unusually somber. Mrs. Thompson, I need a word, in private, his tone urgent. Puzzled, I followed him into a small study. He closed the door with a definitive click and turned to face me. Mrs. Thompson, what I'm about to say must stay between us. Your husband, Nathan, he's involved in something illegal. My heart skipped a beat. What? That's impossible. Nathan's a good man. Mr. Collins sighed, his eyes holding a gravity I hadn't noticed before. I have friends in law enforcement. They've been tracking a drug ring and Nathan's name came up. I can't divulge more, but you should know. I felt my world tilt. Nathan involved in drugs? It couldn't be. Yet. Hadn't I sensed something off? You need to leave him, Mrs. Thompson, for your safety, Mr. Collins added. A bitter laugh escaped me. You expect me to end my marriage based on this? Mr. Collins's gaze was steady. I understand this is hard to accept. Just be careful. Consider what I've said. I left the room in a daze, the lavish walls of the house now feeling like a gilded cage. Outside, Nathan was admiring the garden, oblivious to the storm raging in my mind. Everything okay, honey? He asked, wrapping an arm around my waist. Yeah, just a bit overwhelmed by all this, I lied, forcing a smile. As we drove home, Nathan chattered about the house, our future, his dreams, but my thoughts were a whirlwind of doubt and fear. Was the man I married not who I thought he was? The words of Mr. Collins echoed in my mind, a sinister undercurrent to Nathan's enthusiastic plans. That night, as Nathan slept beside me, his face peaceful in the moonlight, I made a decision. I needed the truth. And if Nathan was the man Mr. Collins claimed he was, then I would make him pay. For my heart, for my trust, for everything. Revenge, a word I never thought would belong to me, settled in my heart. Nathan had chosen his path. Now it was time to choose mine. Months before the property viewing, life with Nathan seemed almost idyllic. We were the couple our friends envied, always laughing, always together. But as I lay awake that night, the past replayed in my mind, revealing cracks I had chosen to ignore. Meredith, I'll be out late tonight. Drinks with the guys, Nathan had said one evening, his tone casual. I remembered nodding, a smile fixed on my face. Sure, have fun. Just don't stay out too late. As I thought back, I realized these late nights had become more frequent. Nathan, once eager to spend every moment with me, now seemed to find any excuse to be away. I had dismissed it as pre-marriage jitters, the last hurrahs of bachelorhood. But now, doubt crept in like a shadow. The following morning, I decided to confront Nathan. Over breakfast, I broached the subject. Nathan, we need to talk. You've been out a lot lately? Is everything okay? He looked up from his coffee, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes. It's nothing, Meredith. Just enjoying my freedom while I can. You know, before the ball and chain. His words stung, and I pushed back my chair, standing up. Is that how you see our marriage? A ball and chain? Nathan's expression softened, and he reached for my hand. I didn't mean it like that, Meredith. I love you. I'm just getting it all out of my system. I wanted to believe him, to return to the blissful ignorance I had basked in. But the seed of doubt Mr. Collins planted refused to be ignored. That afternoon, I called my best friend Lisa, seeking a sounding board. Lisa, do you think I'm overreacting? Nathan's been so distant lately. Lisa's voice was hesitant. Meredith, you know I love you both, but I've seen Nathan out. He's not always with the guys. Her words were a punch to my gut. What do you mean? He's been seen around town with some unsavory characters. I didn't want to say anything, but I felt a chill run down my spine. Nathan's late nights, his evasive answers, and now Mr. Collins's warning, it all began to form a sinister picture. Over the next few days, I observed Nathan. His phone, once left carelessly around the house, was now always on him, buzzing with constant messages. His once warm demeanor towards me cooled, replaced by a detached politeness. One evening, as Nathan prepared for another night out, I confronted him again. Nathan, who are you meeting tonight? You're always so secretive. He paused, his back to me. Just some old friends. You wouldn't know them. The lie was evident, and I felt a surge of anger. "Nathan, I'm your wife. If there's something going on, you can tell me." He turned, his eyes hard. "There's nothing to tell, Meredith. Just drop it." As he left, slamming the door behind him, I felt a resolve harden within me. Nathan was hiding something, and I was going to find out what. No more excuses, no more lies. I was done playing the dutiful, oblivious wife. That night, as I sat alone in our cold, silent house, I knew one thing for certain. The man I married was a stranger, and I was going to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The ensuing days felt like walking through a thick fog. Each smile Nathan flashed, every affectionate gesture now seemed tainted with duplicity. I watched him, the man I had pledged my life to, with a skeptic's eye, searching for the truth behind his mask. One evening, as we sat in our living room surrounded by real estate brochures, Nathan's true nature began to emerge more clearly. "Meredith, look at this one," he said, pointing to a brochure featuring a mansion that screamed opulence. "Your dad won't mind footing the bill for this, right?" I felt a pang of disgust at his casual expectation of my father's wealth. "Nathan, we need to be realistic. We can't exploit my father's generosity." He laughed, a sound that once warmed my heart, now chilling it. "Come on, Meredith. Your dad's loaded. He'd want his little girl to live in luxury." I stared at him, the man I thought I knew, now a stranger driven by greed. "My father's money isn't a ticket to your lavish fantasies, Nathan." His face darkened, and for a moment I saw the man Mr. Collins had warned me about. "So what? You're choosing your dad over me?" I stood up, my hands trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. "This isn't about choosing sides. It's about respect and responsibility, something you seem to have forgotten." Nathan stood as well, his eyes flashing with something akin to fury. "You know what, Meredith? Maybe you're the one who's forgotten what this marriage is about." I felt a cold resolve settle over me. "And what is that, Nathan? Using me for my father's money?" He didn't respond, turning away with a dismissive wave of his hand. That night, I lay in bed, the space between us wider than the physical distance. My mind was made up. I needed to protect myself and my family from this man who had become an embodiment of betrayal. The following day, I made a call to a private investigator. If Nathan wouldn't give me the truth, I would find it myself. I recounted Nathan's late nights, his sudden interest in expensive properties, and Mr. Collins's alarming revelation. "I need to know what he's hiding," I told the investigator. "I need evidence." As I set the plan in motion, a part of me mourned the loss of the love I once felt, but that grief was overshadowed by a burning desire for justice. Nathan had made his choice, and now I was making mine. Weeks passed, and the investigator provided me with updates. Nathan's business meetings were nothing more than rendezvous with known criminals. The late nights were not spent with friends, but in shady dealings. Each report was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. I confronted Nathan one last time, armed with the evidence. "I know about your dealings, Nathan. I know about the people you've been meeting." His reaction was not of remorse, but of rage. "You had me followed? You spied on me?" "Yes, because you left me no choice," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I trusted you, Nathan, and you betrayed me." He scoffed, turning away. "You're just like everyone else. You don't understand what it takes to make it in this world." As he left the room, I knew there was no turning back. I had seen the real Nathan, a man consumed by greed and deceit, and I would not let him destroy me. I would fight back with every resource at my disposal. Nathan would learn that betrayal comes at a price, and I would be the one to collect it. The day of the property viewing loomed like a dark cloud. I knew it was more than just looking at houses. It was a confrontation with the truth about Nathan. As we drove in silence, my mind raced with the reports from the private investigator and the images of Nathan's secret life. The man next to me was a stranger, his charming facade now a grotesque mask. Upon arriving, the property's grandeur was overshadowed by the weight of my impending revelation. Nathan seemed oblivious, lost in visions of a life built on lies and deceit. The real estate agent, Mr. Collins, greeted us with a professionalism that felt cold. His eyes met mine, a silent acknowledgement of the storm brewing beneath the surface. As we toured the lavish rooms, Nathan's excitement was palpable. "Imagine the parties we could have here, Meredith. This is the life we deserve." His words echoed hollowly in my ears. Deserve? Based on what, Nathan? Your lies? Your illegal activities? He stopped, a flicker of panic crossing his face. What are you talking about? I know everything, Nathan. The late nights, the criminals, the drugs. You've been living a double life. His facade cracked, revealing a glimpse of the man he truly was. You've been snooping around, spying on me? Yes, because I needed to know the truth, I said, my voice unwavering. Nathan's expression hardened. You think you're better than me, Meredith? You think you're above it all with your perfect life and your rich daddy? The accusation stung, but I stood my ground. This isn't about me, Nathan. This is about you and the choices you've made. He scoffed, turning away. You don't understand anything. As he stormed off, Mr. Collins approached me, his expression grave. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Mrs. Thompson, but you needed to know the truth. I nodded. My resolve strengthened. Thank you, Mr. Collins. I needed to see it for myself. Leaving the property, I knew what I had to do. Nathan's betrayal couldn't go unpunished. The man I loved was gone, replaced by a criminal who used me as a stepping stone for his ambitions. That evening, I sat alone in our now tainted home, planning my next move. Nathan's world would come crashing down, and I would be the one to pull the lever. He would pay for his deceit, not just legally, but personally. I would ensure that his fall from grace was as steep as the pedestal he had placed himself upon. The game had changed, and I was no longer a pawn in Nathan's twisted world. I was now the player, and it was my turn to make a move. The next few days were a blur of cold determination. My plan for retribution against Nathan took shape, each step meticulously crafted. I reached out to Mr. Collins, seeking more information and solidifying my resolve. We met in a discreet cafe, the buzz of the city a stark contrast to our somber conversation. Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Collins began, his voice low, I've gathered more evidence. It's worse than we thought. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos and documents, undeniable proof of Nathan's entanglement in criminal activities. My hands trembled as I leafed through the evidence. How could he be so reckless? It's greed, Mrs. Thompson. It blinds people, Mr. Collins replied. I looked up, my eyes burning with a mix of fury and sorrow. I want to bring him down. He can't get away with this. Collins nodded. I understand. You have my full support. The following day, I confronted Nathan. He returned home, his usual arrogance on display. I was waiting, the folder of evidence in hand. Nathan, we need to talk, I said, my voice steady. He smirked, unaware of the storm about to break. What now, Meredith? More accusations? I threw the folder on the table. No, not accusations. Proof. His smirk vanished as he flipped through the documents. Where did you get this? That's not important. What matters is that your lies are over, I said. Nathan's face contorted with rage. You think you can corner me like this? You're nothing without me, Meredith. His words were like venom, but I stood unshaken. I was everything before you, and I'll be everything after you're gone. Your time is up, Nathan. He lunged at me, but I was ready. Stepping aside, I let his momentum carry him forward, crashing into the furniture. Stay away from me, I warned, my heart pounding. Nathan picked himself up, his eyes wild. You'll pay for this, Meredith. You think you've won? This is far from over. But I could see the fear in his eyes. He knew his world was crumbling. I'm going to the authorities, I declared. You're going to face the consequences of your actions. As he stormed out, I knew the battle was just beginning. But I was prepared. Nathan had underestimated me, and that was his biggest mistake. My heart ached with the betrayal and loss, but it was overshadowed by a burning desire for justice. Nathan's fall from grace would be a spectacle, and I would be the architect of his demise. This was more than revenge. It was retribution for every lie, every deceitful smile, every moment he thought he could use me and walk away unscathed. The game of deception was over, and I was writing the final act. Nathan would learn that betrayal comes with a price, and I was here to collect. The day of reckoning arrived with a heavy air. I stood in the living room, the evidence of Nathan's betrayal neatly compiled on the coffee table, waiting for him to return. My heart raced with a mix of fear and anticipation. Today, Nathan's charade would end. The sound of the door opening sent a shiver down my spine. Nathan walked in, his usual confident stride faltering as he saw the determined look in my eyes. Meredith, what's this about? He asked, trying to maintain his composure. It's about the truth, Nathan, I replied, my voice unwavering. The truth about who you really are. He scoffed, attempting to deflect. You're being dramatic. Let's just talk this out. I pushed the folder towards him. Talk? Like how you talked your way into illegal dealings? Or how you talked about love while betraying everything we stood for? Nathan's facade began to crumble, his eyes betraying a flicker of panic. Meredith, you don't understand. I did this for us, for our future. By destroying it, I countered sharply. You did this for yourself, Nathan. Your greed, your lies, you've ruined everything. He lunged towards me, his face contorted with rage. You think you can judge me? You, with your perfect life and your daddy's money? I stepped back, my resolve hardening. This isn't about me, Nathan. It's about your crimes, your choices, and now you're going to face the consequences. Nathan's anger turned to desperation. Meredith, please. We can fix this. I can fix this. But it was too late. There's nothing left to fix, Nathan. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. With a trembling hand, I dialed the number I had prepared. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air, and police officers arrived at our door. Nathan's face drained of color as he realized the gravity of the situation. You called the police? Yes, Nathan. It's over, I said, a mix of relief and sorrow washing over me. As the officers handcuffed him, Nathan turned to me, his eyes filled with a toxic combination of anger and disbelief. You'll regret this, Meredith. You've just made the biggest mistake of your life. But I stood firm, watching as he was led away. The man I had loved was gone, replaced by a stranger whose deceit and greed had consumed him. In the silence that followed, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had done what was necessary, not just for me, but for the justice that Nathan had so callously disregarded. The path ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to face it. Nathan's betrayal had shattered my trust, but it had also revealed a strength in me I never knew I had. As I looked around the empty house, I realized that this was not an end but a beginning of a new chapter, one where I was no longer a victim of deceit but a survivor, ready to rebuild my life on my own terms. The days following Nathan's arrest were a whirlwind of emotions and legal proceedings. Sitting in the courtroom, watching the man I once loved now reduced to a criminal defendant, I felt a complex mix of triumph and heartache. As the judge delivered the verdict, guilty on multiple counts, Nathan's face was a mask of defeat. He turned to look at me, his eyes a mix of anger and despair. In that moment, I saw the remnants of the man I had married, buried under layers of greed and deception. Outside the courtroom, the press swarmed, eager for a statement. I faced them, my voice steady. Justice has been served today. It's a sad day when someone you trusted betrays not just you, but the law. The following weeks were a time of reflection. I realized that my marriage to Nathan had been built on a foundation of lies. But I also recognized the strength and resilience I had found within myself. I decided to start anew, leaving behind the tainted memories of our shared home. Selling the property, I moved into a smaller, cozier place, one that represented my new beginning. One day, while settling into my new life, I received a call. It was Nathan's parents. They wanted to meet, to apologize for their son's actions. We met at a quiet cafe, and the remorse in their eyes was genuine. Meredith, we're so sorry for what Nathan did to you, his mother said, her voice quivering. I nodded, acknowledging their pain. Thank you, but Nathan's choices were his own. You don't need to bear his guilt. His father, a stoic man, handed me an envelope. We know it can't undo the harm, but please accept this as a token of our apology. I opened the envelope to find a substantial check. I hesitated, then pushed it back. I appreciate the gesture, but I cannot accept this. Nathan's actions are not your responsibility. Their gratitude was evident, and we parted ways with a mutual understanding and respect. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. The experience with Nathan had changed me, but it had also opened my eyes to my own strength and the importance of trust and integrity. One day, I received news that Nathan had been released on parole. A part of me tensed at the thought of facing him again, but I realized that he no longer had power over me. I had moved on, leaving the shadows of our past behind. I learned that Nathan had started working, trying to rebuild his life. Whether he had truly changed, I didn't know, but it was no longer my concern. My journey had taught me that some people come into our lives as lessons, and Nathan had been my harshest one. As I walked through the park, the sun setting in a brilliant array of colors, I felt a sense of peace. The chapter of my life with Nathan was closed, but my story was far from over. In the end, I had not just survived, I had thrived. And as I looked towards the future, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them with a heart that was stronger, wiser, and more open than ever before.
The receipt fell from Marcus's jacket pocket like a whisper of betrayal. $3,000 at Cartier, dated last Tuesday, when he claimed to be working late. I stood in our walk-in closet, the paper trembling between my fingers, while the sounds of Emma practicing piano drifted up from downstairs. My name is Alondra, and until this moment, I'd been living someone else's life. A life where expensive jewelry appeared on other women's necks while I wore the same pearl pendant Marcus gave me on our 10th anniversary. "Mommy, Lucas took my sheet music again." Emma's voice shattered my trance. I crumpled the receipt into my pocket. "Coming, sweetie." My voice didn't crack. 15 years of marriage had taught me how to keep things together, even when they were falling apart. Downstairs, Lucas had scattered piano sheets across the living room floor, giggling as Emma chased him. Nina watched from her playpen, stuffed giraffe clutched to her chest. "Lucas Carter, what did we say about respecting your sister's things?" He pouted, bottom lip quivering. But she wouldn't let me play too. I gathered the sheets, buying time to steady my hands. "Emma's practicing for her recital. You'll have your turn after." "It's not fair," he mumbled, but helped collect the papers anyway. My phone buzzed. A message from Jessica: "Check Vanessa Reed's Instagram now." I waited until the kids were settled, Emma back at the piano, Lucas with his Legos, Nina dozing in her playpen. In the kitchen, I pulled up Instagram, my fingers numb as I typed the name. There it was. Posted 3 days ago, Vanessa at dinner, wearing a diamond pendant that caught the light just so. The caption read, "Sometimes the best surprises come on ordinary Tuesdays." The same Tuesday as the receipt. The room tilted. I gripped the counter, bile rising in my throat. In the background of the photo, just visible, was Marcus's watch, the one I'd given him for Christmas. My phone buzzed again. "Marcus, working late tonight. Don't wait up." I stared at his message, something cold and hard crystallizing in my chest. The Marcus I knew, or thought I knew, was meticulous, careful. He wouldn't make mistakes like leaving receipts in pockets or appearing in social media photos. Unless he wanted to get caught. Unless this was his way of ending things without having to be the bad guy. The piano music stopped abruptly. "Mom? Are you okay?" I turned to find Emma in the doorway, her face pinched with worry. 8 years old and already so attuned to others' pain. Just like I was at her age. "Of course, baby." I forced a smile. "Just thinking about dinner plans." She didn't believe me, I could see it in her eyes, but she nodded anyway. "Can we have pizza?" "Sure." The word tasted like ash in my mouth. "Why don't you help me order?" As Emma scrolled through toppings on my phone, I watched her small fingers move across the screen. She had Marcus's hands, elegant, precise. What else had she inherited from him? His capacity for deception? His talent for hurting the people who loved him most? The diamond pendant in the photo had probably cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. Money that could have gone to Emma's piano lessons, Lucas's speech therapy, Nina's college fund. Money that belonged to our family, now adorning another woman's neck. I kissed the top of Emma's head, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. "Extra cheese?" I asked, as if this were any other Tuesday, as if my world hadn't just imploded. "Always," she said, smiling up at me. In that moment, looking into my daughter's trusting eyes, I made a decision. Marcus wouldn't get to write the ending to this story. He wouldn't get to be the villain or the victim. This time, I would be the one controlling the narrative. And I would make damn sure he regretted every choice that led us here. Emma refused to go to school the next morning. She lay in bed, covers pulled to her chin, face flushed with what I knew wasn't fever. "My stomach hurts," she insisted, but her eyes darted away from mine. I sat on the edge of her bed, noting the dark circles under her eyes that mirrored my own sleepless night. "Did something happen at school yesterday?" She twisted her blanket between her fingers. "No. I don't want to go to piano today. Miss Chen always asks about Daddy, and I don't know what to say anymore." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Of course she'd noticed. Marcus had missed her last 3 recitals, each time with a different excuse that even an 8-year-old could see through. "What do you mean, sweetie?" She asks if he's practicing with me at home, but he's never here anymore. "And when he is?" She trailed off, lower lip trembling. "And when he is? He's different. Like he's not really seeing us." The doorbell rang downstairs, followed by Lucas's excited shriek. "Aunt Jessica." I squeezed Emma's hand. "We'll talk more later, okay? But for now, let's get ready. I promise I'll pick you up early today." Jessica was in the kitchen when I came down, helping Lucas with his cereal while bouncing Nina on her hip. She took one look at my face and said, "You look like hell." "Language," I warned, nodding toward Lucas. "Sorry." She wasn't. "Coffee's ready. Strong enough to wake the dead, just how you need it." Once the kids were settled with breakfast, Jessica cornered me by the coffee maker. "Have you confronted him yet?" I shook my head. "He didn't come home last night." "Bastard." This time she didn't apologize. "What are you going to do?" Before I could answer, my phone chimed. A text from Marcus, "Meeting ran late. Crashed at hotel. Taking clients to breakfast. See you tonight." Jessica read over my shoulder and snorted. Hotel receipt should be interesting. "Want me to do some digging at the office?" "You could lose your job." Jessica worked in HR at Marcus's company, 2 floors below his executive suite. "Worth it. Besides, I've been documenting some interesting expense reports lately." She raised an eyebrow meaningfully. The implications sank in slowly. "How long have you known?" "Suspected, not known. And I wasn't sure until you showed me that Instagram post." She shifted Nina to her other hip. "There's more, Alondra. The company's announcing layoffs next month. Marcus is on the committee deciding who goes." My hands shook as I set down my coffee. "And Vanessa? Rising star in marketing. Just got a promotion that several more qualified people were up for." Emma appeared in the doorway, backpack on, watching us with those 2 perceptive eyes. "Mom? We'll be late." The drive to school was quiet. In the rearview mirror, I watched Emma stare out the window, her small face troubled. Lucas hummed to himself, oblivious, while Nina dozed in her car seat. After drop-off, I sat in the parking lot, Jessica's words echoing in my head. The company credit card statements would be in Marcus's desk at home. The same desk where he'd proposed 15 years ago, down on one knee, promising forever. My phone buzzed again. "Marcus, don't forget the Hendersons' dinner party Saturday. Wear the blue dress." The blue dress he bought to apologize after missing Christmas at my mother's last year. The one that hung in my closet, tag still on, while Vanessa wore diamonds bought with our children's future. I started the car, but instead of heading home, I turned toward the bank. Time to see exactly what else my husband had been hiding in those joint accounts he thought I never checked. "Nina, sweetie," I said to my sleeping daughter, "let's go see what Daddy's been up to." The teller's face changed when she pulled up our accounts. She glanced at Nina, then back at me, sympathy crossing her features. "Mrs. Carter, would you like to speak with our manager in private?" I gripped Nina's carrier tighter. "Yes," I said, already knowing whatever I was about to learn would change everything. "I would." The bank statements spread across my mother's kitchen table told a story of systematic betrayal. $200,000, transferred in careful increments over the past year to an offshore account. Our children's college funds, drained to almost nothing. He's been planning this, I said, my voice hollow in the quiet kitchen. Nina napped upstairs while my mother, Martha, studied the papers through her reading glasses. The transfers started right after his promotion. She tapped a date with her fingernail. When he got control of the family finances. Because I trusted him. The words tasted bitter. Because he said it would be easier if he handled everything. The doorbell rang. Jessica burst in before I could answer it, her face flushed. You need to see this. She thrust her phone at me. Vanessa just posted it 10 minutes ago. A photo of a tropical beach, white sand and turquoise water. The caption read, "Can't wait for our December getaway." Sometimes the best Christmas presents come early. December. When Marcus had told me he had an unavoidable business conference in Singapore. There's more, Jessica said. I overheard Vanessa on the phone. She's looking at houses in the same neighborhood as the Hendersons. Talking about schools. My mother's hand found mine across the table. Alondra. Schools, I repeated. The word echoed in my head alongside Emma's voice from that morning. He's different. Like he's not really seeing us. My phone buzzed. Marcus, running late again. Don't wait up. P.S. Did you get the blue dress altered for Saturday? The rage that had been simmering for days finally boiled over. I grabbed my keys. Where are you going? My mother called after me. To get altered. I drove to Marcus's office building, my hand steady on the wheel despite the thunder of my pulse. The security guard recognized me, waving me through with a smile. Mr. Carter's in a meeting, Mrs. Carter. That's fine. I'll wait. The elevator ride to the executive floor gave me time to smooth my hair, check my lipstick. I looked exactly like what I was supposed to be, the devoted wife bringing her husband a surprise lunch. Vanessa's office was 3 doors down from Marcus's. Through the glass walls, I could see her at her desk, phone to her ear, laughing at something. She wore the diamond necklace. I knocked on her door. She looked up, smile fading to confusion. Can I help you? Actually, I said, stepping inside and closing the door, I'm here to help you. I'm sorry, I don't. The necklace looks beautiful on you. Marcus has always had excellent taste in jewelry. And women. The color drained from her face. You're his wife. Mother of his 3 children. Owner of the bank account that paid for that necklace. I placed the bank statements on her desk. And the house you're planning to buy. She stared at the papers, then back at me. He said he was separated. That the divorce was almost final. There is no divorce. Yet. I sat down across from her. But there will be. The question is, how many careers will it destroy in the process? Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a choice. The same choice I wish someone had offered me 15 years ago. I pulled out my phone, showing her the photo of Emma at her piano recital. Lucas and Nina in their Sunday best. These are the people he's stealing from. The ones who wait up at night, making excuses for why Daddy missed another dinner, another birthday, another Christmas. Her hand went to the necklace. I didn't know. Now you do. I stood up. You have until Saturday to decide what kind of person you want to be. The woman who helped a man abandon his children, or the one who helped stop him. What happens Saturday? The Hendersons' dinner party. Where Marcus plans to announce his promotion to senior partner. I paused at the door. Unless someone reveals where that promotion money really went. I left her there, staring at my children's faces on her desk, the diamond necklace glittering like tears in the fluorescent light. In the elevator, my phone buzzed again. Marcus, where are you? Need you to pick up my dry cleaning before Saturday. I smiled at my reflection in the mirrored walls. Don't worry, darling, I whispered. Everything will be perfect for Saturday. Marcus came home early that night, something he hadn't done in months. I watched from the kitchen as he played with Lucas on the floor, both of them laughing over a tower of blocks. The perfect father, when he remembered to be one. Daddy, watch. Lucas stacked another block precariously on top. Careful there, champ. Marcus's phone buzzed. His smile flickered as he checked it, then quickly turned it face down. Emma sat at the dining table, homework spread before her, stealing glances at this unexpected family scene. Her pencil moved mechanically across the page, but I could tell she wasn't really solving math problems. I picked up your dry cleaning, I said, keeping my voice light. The blue dress was ready too. Perfect. He didn't look up from his phone. The Hendersons are expecting quite a crowd Saturday. Half the board will be there. Including Vanessa Reed? The name dropped like a stone into still water. His hand stilled on Lucas's blocks. What? From marketing. Jessica mentioned she got that promotion everyone was surprised about. The tower crashed. Lucas wailed as blocks scattered across the floor. Marcus stood, brushing invisible dust from his pants. We should discuss this in private. Why? Afraid the children might learn something new about their father? Emma's pencil snapped. Alondra. His voice carried that familiar warning tone. Not now. When, Marcus? After Christmas in the tropics? Or after you buy that house in the Hendersons' neighborhood? He grabbed my arm, steering me toward his home office. Behind us, Emma had abandoned any pretense of doing homework. Who's been filling your head with these ridiculous ideas? He shut the door, but I could still hear Lucas crying outside. The same people who helped you empty our bank accounts? I'm protecting our future. Our future? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make him flinch. Or the future you're planning with someone who doesn't know you have 3 children? His face changed then, something cold and calculating replacing the mask of concerned husband. You went to see her. I went to see what $200,000 of our children's money bought. Those transfers were legitimate business investments. In what? Diamond necklaces and beach vacations? He stepped closer, using his height to loom over me the way he did when he wanted me to feel small. You're emotional. Making accusations you can't prove. Who's going to believe you over me? The devoted family man who built this life for you? The board might, when they see where their promotion money really went. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Is that a threat? No, darling. I smiled, thinking of Vanessa's face when she saw those bank statements. It's a promise. A small gasp made us both turn. Emma stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Before either of us could speak, she ran. Emma. Marcus called after her, but the sound of her bedroom door slamming echoed through the house. Congratulations, I said, pulling free of his grip. You finally got her to see you clearly. His phone buzzed again. This time, I caught a glimpse of the message preview. V, we need to talk. Now. Fix this, he hissed. Before Saturday. Or I'll make sure you regret it. I thought of the documents Jessica had helped me gather, safely stored with my mother. The text messages. The photos. The financial records. All the evidence of a life carefully constructed on lies. No, Marcus. I walked to the door, pausing with my hand on the knob. You'll regret thinking you could threaten me into silence. Just like you'll regret assuming I'd never fight back. Where are you going? To comfort our daughter. Something you've forgotten how to do. I looked back at him, this stranger I'd spent 15 years loving. Oh, and don't worry about Saturday. I'm sure it will be unforgettable. His phone kept buzzing as I walked away, each notification another crack in the foundation of his carefully built facade. Upstairs, Emma's muffled sobs guided me toward the next battle in this war he'd started. But this time, I wasn't fighting alone. Friday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Vanessa stood on my doorstep, her diamond necklace conspicuously absent. She clutched her designer handbag like a shield. "Is Marcus home?" "Teaching Lucas to ride his bike." I gestured toward the empty driveway. "He won't be back for hours." She glanced over her shoulder before stepping inside. "I found something you need to see." Nina played in her playpen while Vanessa spread documents across my kitchen counter, the same counter where Marcus had kissed me goodbye that morning. Playing his role of devoted husband. "These are transfer records," Vanessa said. "Not just from your accounts. From the company's pension fund." My hands shook as I read the numbers. Millions, not thousands. Names I recognized, retirement savings of people who'd worked for the company for decades. "He told me it was investment capital," Vanessa whispered. "For our future. Our house." "Your house," I corrected. "Built with other people's futures." The back door slammed. Emma rushed in, face flushed from running. "Mom." Lucas fell off his bike and she froze, seeing Vanessa. "Emma, go to your room." "But Lucas." "Now." She went, but not before I saw the recognition in her eyes. She'd seen Vanessa's photos on Marcus's phone. "That's your daughter?" Vanessa's voice cracked. "She looks just like Marcus." "I know." I gathered the documents, hands steady now. "Why are you really here, Vanessa?" "The board meeting. Tomorrow morning, before the Hendersons' party. Marcus is presenting the quarterly financials. And these numbers won't match his presentation." She nodded. "He doesn't know I found them. Doesn't know I followed him to that cafe last week, saw him with someone from the Cayman Islands." My phone buzzed. "Jessica, emergency. Marcus moved the board meeting to today. 3 p.m. The front door opened. Lucas's sobs echoed through the house, followed by Marcus's soothing voice. "It's okay, champ. Everyone falls sometimes." Vanessa paled. I shoved the documents into her bag, pushing her toward the back door. "Go. Now." She hesitated. "Alondra, save it for the board meeting." She slipped out just as Marcus entered, carrying a crying Lucas. His eyes narrowed at the closing door. "Who was that?" "Jessica. Dropping off some papers for Emma's school registration." He set Lucas down, examining his scraped knee. "Funny. Thought I saw a different car. Must be the neighbors." I grabbed the first aid kit, kneeling beside Lucas. "Let's fix you up, sweetie." Marcus's phone rang. His face darkened at the caller ID. "I need to take this." In his office, his voice rose despite the closed door. "What do you mean you can't find them?" "No, check again. The meeting's been moved to today." Lucas sniffled as I cleaned his knee. "Daddy said falling means I'm learning." "Did he?" I smoothed a bandage over the scrape. "Sometimes falling shows us who's really there to help us back up." Emma crept downstairs, hovering in the doorway. "Mom? Is everything okay?" Marcus burst from his office. "Ty ask you." "Emergency at work. Don't wait up." He didn't kiss me goodbye. Didn't notice Emma's tears or Lucas's bandaged knee. My phone buzzed again. "Jessica, board members arriving early. Vanessa's here." She looked scared. Then another message, from my mother, "Papers ready at the lawyer's office. Just say when." I looked at my children, Emma's knowing eyes, Lucas's healing knee, Nina babbling in her playpen. Thought of all the other families whose futures sat in Vanessa's designer bag, waiting for someone to speak up. Emma, call Grandma. Ask her to watch you and your siblings for a few hours. Where are you going? I grabbed my car keys and the blue dress Marcus wanted me to wear tomorrow. To make sure your father never makes anyone fall again. The dress felt like armor as I headed for the door. Behind me, Emma hugged Lucas close, whispering something that made him smile through his tears. Sometimes falling shows us who we really are. And sometimes, it shows us exactly who we need to become. The boardroom felt colder than I remembered from company Christmas parties. I sat in the back, the blue dress a slash of color among charcoal suits, while Marcus commanded the room from the podium. Our quarterly projections exceed all expectations, he said, clicking through pristine slides. The pension fund investments have yielded unprecedented returns. Vanessa wasn't here. Her empty chair screamed louder than Marcus's practiced lies. My phone vibrated. Jessica, Vanessa's in the hospital. Car accident on her way here. Marcus's driver was involved. The room tilted. I gripped the armrest as Marcus's voice droned on about growth metrics and market penetration. And now, I'd like to address the rumors about unauthorized fund transfers. Heads turned. This wasn't on the agenda. My wife, Marcus's eyes found mine, cold and triumphant, has been experiencing some emotional difficulties lately. Making accusations. Creating false documents. The board chairman frowned. What accusations? She's here now, aren't you, darling? Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. Would you like to share your concerns with the board? I stood, papers trembling in my hands. The pension fund? Has been properly managed, Marcus cut in. As evidenced by these notarized statements from our accounting firm. He distributed documents, perfect replicas of Vanessa's evidence, but with different numbers. Different signatures. In fact, he continued, I've recently discovered concerning transfers from our joint accounts to offshore locations. Transfers made by my wife. The room spun. My phone buzzed again, Vanessa in surgery. Documents destroyed in crash. I've already contacted the authorities, Marcus said softly. They're very interested in speaking with you about financial fraud. The chairman cleared his throat. Perhaps we should take a brief recess. I fled the room, heels clicking on marble, Marcus's voice following. As you can see, we're handling this family matter discreetly. In the bathroom, I splashed water on my face. The mirror showed a woman I barely recognized, mascara smeared, lipstick faded, the blue dress suddenly garish under fluorescent lights. The door opened. Jessica slipped in, face pale. Police are in the lobby. Marcus filed charges this morning. The children. Your mother has them. But Marcus filed for emergency custody, claiming financial misconduct. My legs gave out. Jessica caught me before I hit the floor. He planned this, I whispered. The accident, the documents, all of it. There's more. Jessica helped me to my feet. The Hendersons' party tonight? The board will be there. Marcus is announcing a company-wide restructuring. The pension fund will be redistributed before anyone realizes it's gone. The bathroom door swung open again. 2 police officers entered, followed by Marcus. I'm sorry it came to this, darling. His voice carried just the right note of concern. Perfect, like everything else about him. Think of the children. The handcuffs felt like ice against my wrists. As they led me out, past shocked employees and whispers, Marcus's mask slipped for just a moment. I saw what Emma had seen, the stranger wearing her father's face. Your daughter knows, I said quietly as we passed. She'll never forgive you. Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, maybe. Or recognition of what he'd lost. In the police car, my phone buzzed one final time. Through tears, I read Jessica's message. Vanessa woke up. She made copies. But it was too late. Marcus had one. He'd take the children, the money, the carefully constructed life we'd built. By the time the truth came out, the damage would be done. The police station loomed ahead, gray and imposing. Like the walls Marcus had built around our family, brick by brick, until we were all trapped inside. I closed my eyes, seeing Emma's face this morning as I left. She'd hugged me tight, whispering, "I believe in you, Mom." My daughter's faith would have to be enough. Because right now, watching my freedom disappear in the rearview mirror, I didn't believe in anything anymore. Not even revenge. The Hendersons' party sparkled with champagne and success, but the whispers followed Marcus like shadows. 3 hours after my arrest, I walked into their marble foyer, still wearing the blue dress, now accessorized with a police detective's badge. Marcus froze mid-laugh, his champagne flute trembling slightly. "How?" "Your driver confessed." I moved through the crowd, which parted like water. Fascinating story about being paid to run Vanessa off the road. The board chairman appeared at Marcus's elbow. "What's the meaning of this?" "Show them, Jessica." She stepped forward, tablet in hand. On the screen, security footage played, Marcus in the parking garage, handing cash to his driver. The timestamp matched perfectly with Vanessa's accident. "That proves nothing," Marcus said, but his voice had lost its smooth confidence. "The copies prove everything." Vanessa's voice rang out from the doorway. She stood there, arm in a sling, face bruised but determined. "The ones I sent to the SEC before leaving for the board meeting." The room erupted in murmurs. Marcus's face twisted. "You stupid." "The pension fund transfers," I cut in. "The offshore accounts. The falsified documents. The SEC has it all. You're bluffing." But his eyes darted toward the exit. "Emma," I called out. "Show your father what you found." Our daughter emerged from behind Jessica, holding Marcus's laptop. "I remembered your password, Daddy. The one you used for my birthday." The color drained from his face. "Emma, baby. Don't." Her voice shook, but her chin stayed high. "I saw the emails. About the accident. About Mom." The detective stepped forward. "Marcus Carter, we have some questions about attempted murder." Marcus lunged for the door, but crashed into Martha, who'd positioned herself there precisely for this moment. As he stumbled, the board chairman grabbed his arm. "The authorities are very interested in those pension funds," I said quietly. "But I'm willing to make a deal." "A deal?" He spat the word like poison. "Sign over full custody. Return every penny you stole. Walk away from the children you never really wanted anyway." "Or what?" "Or Emma testifies about the emails. About everything she saw and heard. About her father ordering someone to kill her mother's friend." His facade cracked completely. "You bitch. You planned this." "No, Marcus. You did. With every lie, every betrayal, every moment you chose yourself over our children." The detective moved forward with handcuffs, but I held up my hand. "Wait. One more thing." I stepped closer to Marcus, close enough to smell his expensive cologne. "Emma asked me last week why you stopped loving us. I told her you never stopped, because I thought that would hurt less than the truth." "The truth?" "That you never loved us at all. We were just props in your perfect life." "But props can be replaced, can't they? Like that necklace you bought Vanessa." The handcuffs clicked into place. As the detective led him away, Marcus looked back at Emma. She turned away, pressing her face into my side. "I'm sorry," he whispered, but I couldn't tell if he meant it, or if it was just another performance. The board chairman cleared his throat. "Mrs. Carter, about those pension funds. Talk to my lawyer tomorrow." I smoothed Emma's hair. "Tonight, I'm taking my children home. Later, as we drove away from the Hendersons, Emma asked, "Did we win?" I thought about revenge, about justice, about the thin line between them. About a blue dress and a diamond necklace and all the ways love can turn to poison. No, baby. Nobody wins in things like this. But sometimes. I met her eyes in the rearview mirror, saw her father's features transformed by something stronger than genetics, choice. Sometimes we survive. And that's enough. She nodded, understanding more than any 8-year-old should. In the back seat, Lucas slept peacefully, while Nina babbled at the passing streetlights. Too young to remember the night their father's perfect lie finally shattered. But I would remember. And so would Marcus, in whatever prison cell awaited him. Some lies are too expensive to survive their own truth. The blue dress hung in the donation box, a splash of sky among gray winter coats. Emma helped me sort through the closet, carefully folding each piece of our old life away. "Can I keep this?" She held up Marcus's Harvard sweatshirt, the one he'd worn on weekend mornings before everything changed. Of course. I watched her clutch it close, understanding some pieces of him were still worth saving. Lucas burst in, brandishing a crayon drawing. "Look what I made in therapy." The stick figures held hands, just 4 of them now, standing under a yellow sun. No tall figure in a suit casting shadows over the scene. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." My voice stayed steady, even as Emma's fingers tightened in the sweatshirt's fabric. The doorbell rang. Jessica arrived with coffee and news. "The pension funds are being restored. The board wanted you to know first." "And Marcus?" "Took the plea deal. 10 years, no possibility of early release." Nina toddled over, arms raised. I scooped her up, breathing in baby shampoo and innocence. "Has he asked about them?" "No." Jessica's voice softened. But Vanessa left something for Emma. She pulled out a familiar velvet box. Inside, the diamond necklace caught the light, each facet reflecting a different lie. Emma touched it gently. "It's pretty. It's yours, if you want it." I watched her face, seeing echoes of her father's features transform with something uniquely her own, wisdom. "No." She closed the box. "Can we sell it? For Lucas's speech therapy?" My throat tightened. "Are you sure?" She nodded, already turning back to the closet. "It's just stuff, Mom. Like Daddy." The doorbell rang again. Martha entered with groceries and determination. Everyone's staying for dinner. No arguments. As she commandeered the kitchen, I found myself in Marcus's study. The desk where he'd proposed still held ghosts of our past, pen marks from signed permission slips. Coffee rings from late nights planning futures that never came. "Need help?" Jessica appeared with a packing box. "Just thinking." Dangerous hobby. The revenge. I traced a coffee stain. It didn't fix anything. No. She started emptying drawers. But it showed them the truth. All of them. In the kitchen, I heard Emma teaching Lucas a new piano piece, their laughter mixing with Martha's cooking sounds and Nina's babbling. A different kind of music than the perfect symphony Marcus had demanded. "Found something." Jessica held up a photo, creased and faded, Marcus and me on our wedding day, his smile practiced, mine real. "Want to keep it?" "No." I took the photo, remembering that naive bride. "She doesn't live here anymore." The last box was almost full when Emma called out, "Mom." Lucas got it right. I rushed to the living room. Lucas sat at the piano, tiny fingers picking out Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star while Emma beamed beside him. "Listen," he said proudly, playing the sequence again. No hesitation, no stutter. Just pure, imperfect music. Martha appeared in the doorway, wiping tears with her apron. Jessica squeezed my hand. Again. Nina clapped from her playpen. As Lucas started over, Emma caught my eye. "We're okay, aren't we, Mom?" I looked at my children, Emma's quiet strength, Lucas's determined focus, Nina's joyful innocence. At Jessica and Martha, who'd helped rebuild what Marcus tried to destroy. "Yes," I said, and for the first time since finding that receipt, it wasn't a lie. "We're better than okay." Later, after dinner and baths and bedtime stories, I found the Harvard sweatshirt folded neatly in the donation box. Emma had placed it there herself, choosing to keep her father's love while letting go of his ghost. Some revenge brings only more pain. But sometimes, between the burning bridges and broken promises, you find something stronger than vengeance, the truth of who you really are. Reflected in the eyes of those who choose to stay. I closed the donation box, sealing away the last pieces of Marcus's perfect lie. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears, new reasons to doubt. But tonight, my children slept peacefully in their beds, their dreams finally their own. And that was the sweetest revenge of all.